Honourable Trevor Mallard really just does display the huge muddle the Labour Party is in, because after all, what did the leaders say about vegetables and GST? Well, this is what Trevor Mallard said. He said in April, a very silly idea to take GST off healthy food, saying, just imagine trying to define that, and how much of each we're allowed each hour, day, week before GST kicks in, and the army of inspectors to check the food and increase in GST or other tax to cover the difference. Mr. Speaker, look, it's quite obvious the Labour opposition are going to be there for a long, long time. They have got very, very muddled thinking. But, Mr. Speaker, it is a huge pleasure to speak on this taxation budget measures bill, because the purpose of this bill is indeed to implement the extremely well-researched, well-reasoned and well-received budget decisions made today. And I say well-received because within about 30 minutes, the employers and manufacturers said this, the fairest budget for many years, the fairest budget for many years, the biggest tax reforms in many years. And just listening to the news tonight, 5 out of 5 of the commentators were giving 7 or greater. Even Guy on ESMA, 7 points for this budget. That's got to be pretty good. But look, 7.5 even better. But, Mr. Speaker, it is important to put this budget in context, because if one thinks back to 2001, if they can think back that far, after organising a highly respected report, the McLeod Taxation Review, what did the Labour government do? They totally ignored it. If they had actually implemented some of those recommendations, we wouldn't have been in the pickle that we are. But in contrast, in 2009, 2010, after this government organising a highly, highly respected report known as a tax system for New Zealand's future, tonight the national government is implementing those measures, or the thrust of most of those measures. And it's salutary to record in the House what the Taxation Working Group report said. They said the current system, this was after 9 years of Labour, is incoherent, it's unfair, it lacks integrity, it unduly discourages work participation and biases investment decisions. And those are the things that have been corrected and are being corrected in this taxation budget measures bill tonight. And they did explain that due to New Zealand's current financial circumstances, they accepted the constraint to consider tax reform on a neutrally fiscal basis. And that's absolutely correct. So what does this taxation budget measures bill do? Firstly, it rewards effort and helps families get ahead. And just in case Labour doesn't know, people respond to incentives. People actually respond to incentives. People do actually think it's fair and equitable that if they work hard, they are rewarded. And this is the thing about this bill. The great thing about this taxation measures bill is that it decreases taxes right across the board. It decreases taxes right across the board. These measures certainly make the system fairer. At all taxable income levels, tax cuts more than affect the GST rise, and furthermore, 2/3 of the cost of the income tax cuts goes to reducing the bottom 2 rates. 2/3 of these reductions go to in addressing the bottom 2 rates. Those are your people that this government is looking after. And the third thing this taxation budget measure bill does, it will help attract and retain skilled people. Mr. Speaker, I was over in Australia a few weeks ago with the Health Select Committee, and we were deeply concerned by the number of research institutes that had skilled New Zealanders in them. They wanted to be here, and this budget is the very sort of measures. The measures in this bill are the very sorts of things that will attract and retain skilled New Zealanders here. And I think the other important thing is that this budget encourages savings and productive investment instead of the 9 years of a Labor government vacuuming up hard-working Kiwis' important earnings and redistributing them in a nanny state manner. Something that they forgot that they had actually got, they'd got so used to they forgot about it. But as Peter Dunn said earlier this afternoon, in 1999, when they put up the tax rate, it was a disaster. Since that time, there's now 130,000 loss-attributing companies in New Zealand, 4 times as many as there were in 1999. Gross distortion has occurred over the last 9 years. So, Mr. Speaker, this bill is an extraordinarily great sweep of measures to correct the disasters of the past and cement in a bright future for New Zealand and economic growth to ensure that New Zealanders do get sustainable, world-class health, education and welfare.